All right, Mark, we are live.
Awesome. This is so fun.
This is so fun. I need to adjust our background so we can actually see what's going on. 7 people on already.
Look at that.
Look at that. It's amazing what advertising can do. Hey guys, if
I
you're
know, right?
here, drop us a comment. Say hey, let us know you're here, and we can actually put your comments up on the screen, which is pretty fun. Look, I can put your name on here from me.
I love it. That's so cool.
Mark, I'm so excited to have you here.
Oh, this is great, Rachel. No, I really appreciate the opportunity. This is so fun.
Oh,
I can't believe we're able to do this.
I know. It's crazy. And I'm
Really
I'm
cool.
also just so glad that we've reconnected since college.
I know, right? It's been a little while.
It's
And so
been
many cool things have happened too.
yeah, absolutely. It's been so fun. Like through the podcast, I've had all these random people like reaching out to me, or I've been like, "Oh, I remember that this person did this cool thing," and I've reached out, and it's been a really fun like networking opportunity.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, no, it's great. Yeah, I don't know if anybody else knows how this all took place, but you and I went to school together at JMU, obviously, and I saw all the stuff you were doing on Facebook and Instagram, and I was like, this is incredible. So I reached out to you, and I was like, I love what you're doing. I love this podcast. I've always wanted to do a podcast myself, and in fact, I'm starting one, which we can talk about sometime. But yeah, I just thought it was so cool, and I love all that you're doing. And then you thought it would be a good idea to have me on, which I'm so grateful for. And here we are.
Yes. Oh, I love it. So, for anyone listening, for the formality of it all, I'm just going to read a little bio about Mark because I'm sure that some of you are not even familiar if you're maybe people from my network, which I hope that you are because I would love to introduce you to Mark. And if you're Mark's people, welcome to the show. So excited to have you. So, Mark, you have so many accomplishments. I'm just going to read some of them.
I appreciate that. Okay, cool.
All right. Mark Thress, based in Nashville, Tennessee, is dedicated to entrepreneurship and fueled by a passion for positive influence. He is an accomplished operatic and studio vocalist with a demonstrated higher education teaching history, and his strong background in vocal research has helped carve a unique path of innovation and vocal science in the singing health specialization. Owner and founder of Vocal 360 Global, Mark's artists have collaborated with Grammy Award winning producers, opened for acts such as Lady A and Amy Grant, received deals for Amazon Prime originals, and performed nationally and internationally on national tours, Broadway, television, and cruise ships. Oh my God, that is quite the resume there.
I'm lucky, you know how it is. I've just been fortunate to be helping a lot of really talented artists. So they get to do some cool stuff.
Isn't that one of the coolest things about being an artist? It's like, not that we're not doing cool stuff ourselves, but sometimes just the opportunity really presents itself to work with these amazing people.
Oh yeah, of course. And the cool thing is too, we get to perform at a high level and everything that we're learning in real time, the thing that we just went through this past weekend, performing a gig or something, we get to pass that on to aspiring artists. So
Yeah.
it's just a wonderful opportunity.
Oh, I love it. So, Mark, I'm so glad you're on the show because when we were talking a couple of weeks ago, you kept talking about how your clients were aspiring artists or just all these aspiring artists, and I was like, wait, that's the name of my podcast, right? And you're like, wait, hold
I
on.
had no idea. Had no idea. Yeah.
It's like your brain is already thinking of how you can inspire
Yeah.
aspiring artists, which is exactly what I'm trying to do.
Isn't that incredible? Yeah. It's just it's amazing. And I think this is kind of the synergy here, right? It's like we both had this revelation, I guess, of what is necessary as an artist and growing into your field and your career, and what elements you need, I guess, from our experiences too. What has been valuable for us. So I think that's so funny that in our conversation that that came up, that it was the
I know.
exact same thing. Yeah.
I was seriously like you're saying this because of my show, right? And you're like, no, I didn't
Oh
even.
no, I had no clue. I had no clue.
No, it's awesome. I have to give a shout out to my dad because when I was developing the podcast, I had a list of probably 50 names or name ideas anyway. And he was the one who suggested Aspiring Artist Podcast.
Oh, that's cool.
But it was the very first name, like before I'd even come up with anything. He was like, I have this idea. I think it'll be good. And I was like, I like it, but let me just think on it. And everything that I came up with, like there was a reason not to do it. And this was just like the best one.
That's so funny. It
I,
fits, right? It's totally fits.
it worked, and I'm so happy. I'm so happy how it worked out because I did have a bunch of names that were related to music or like more even singing, and then I was like, you know what? That's not really the target audience. I mean, yes, singers and musicians, but when you say artists, it becomes so much more broad, and I think that's what's so fun about this podcast is bringing all these incredibly artistic people together from
Yes.
different disciplines, which we just don't always get to do.
Yes, it's so true, right? And I think there's so many different forms of artistry and creativity, and I think that's what you and I connect on, right? It's something that
Yeah.
I look to do is to inspire those creatives too. So,
Totally. Oh, so much fun. So we met in college when we were both pursuing that kind of vocal
yes,
performance path. Um
classical performance actually too, which is specific, you know.
Super specific. I
Mm.
mean, and that's kind of college. It's kind of how it goes, right? It's like you only
Yeah.
have these very limited options. I mean, now and we were lucky that our school even had a music industry major, but
Yeah.
even still, like music industry in Harrisonburg, Virginia, although I'm sure it was a great major, may not expose you to some of the contacts that, maybe being in like the middle of a big city would be.
Sure.
So yeah, we really had this very, very specific path, but we've both taken really different turns from
Oh,
that.
yeah, it's so funny too because I remember getting into the program. I don't know how you were, but when I first started studying at James Madison University, I hadn't had serious voice lessons. I took maybe a lesson or two to like learn some music before school, but it was my understanding that classical music was, or classical singing rather, was the best form of vocal technique and singing that I could have. So maybe there is some truth to that. But maybe not. And I knew that I liked all different kinds of music. So going into that felt uh, odd because I knew I didn't necessarily want to be the world's best opera singer. I just wanted to learn how to sing and appreciate music and dive into it that way. Um, but I don't know if we talked about this. I actually took one of the music industry courses too by Cottrell. Is that his name? Dr. Cottrell, I think,
That
or
sounds right. That sounds
yeah,
right.
yeah. So I took one of those music industry courses my first or second year, and I remember people being like, "Why are you taking that course? Like, you're gonna do opera." And I thought, no, there's so many other things I'm interested in, you know?
Yeah, I know. I kind of have a similar story in that I didn't necessarily want to do music performance so that I would be like a professional opera singer or anything like that. But
Yeah,
I just felt like so many of the other paths that one can take in music are so specific. Like if you do music
exactly.
education, like, okay, they're grooming you to be a K through 12 teacher and everything that
Yep.
that. I didn't want that. I mean, what else is there? The industry degree. And I was like, I don't know. I'm not really that into commercial music. And I'm trying to
Mhm.
think what are the composition, but that's like
Composition.
so specific.
Nah, yeah.
So
Especially when it's classical too.
right. So performance is just kind of like the general degree that I think one gets if they just kind of want to study music. So how has that benefited you in what you're doing now?
Wow.
Or
Well,
has
I
it?
would what's that?
Or
That's
has
a
it?
profound question. I think we need two more meetings for that.
Do we need a
Um
drink? Do we need a drink?
I should have I should have prepared one before. I only have water here. But well, when I went in and I started studying classical music, again, like I could barely produce vibrato, right? And as a tenor, which I am, as a tenor, I went in and they had me singing like Una furtiva lagrima and all these bigger arias that I was just not prepared for. So I think the interesting thing is I learned quick. The degree in vocal performance made me get very comfortable with learning music and diving into music and appreciating it and figuring out who the character is and portraying that appropriately and all those kinds of things. So it's kind of like jumping into the deep end. Um, but I attribute all of my like ear training and everything that I was learning and developing, I attribute that to my time at JMU. And especially my ability to grow my voice at such a rapid pace. I'm really fortunate that through singing classical music, that actually helped me a lot.
Yeah, definitely. And I think there's something about being a music major in general, even if you don't end up using the degree, it teaches you time management and
Oh,
there's
yeah.
there's so much accountability as a music major. And I would
Yes.
imagine really anybody who's majoring in anything in the arts, simply because the average person in college is going to majority lecture classes versus
Mhm.
a music major or a theater major, an art major. Your class size
Totally,
is probably max 20, and you've got that
totally.
one-on-one lesson every week where you are expected to be prepared.
Rachel, you hit the nail on the head. I mean, it's something that I struggled with for a long time. I think because I had such performance anxiety and everything, and we can dive into that some other time. But uh, there's nothing else like it where you go into a profession or you go into, say, let's just stick with the collegiate or academia. You go into a course or a class, and whatever you did to prepare for that class is on display for everybody,
Yeah.
your professors, your colleagues, right? And so if you went in and you didn't learn your words, you didn't memorize your lyrics or something like that, that affects the rest of the show and that falls upon you.
Mm.
So you're right, accountability is a huge thing. I think that really taught me to say, hey, listen, I got to put in the effort because it's like sink or swim,
Yeah.
and I'm also part of this team. If I don't prepare and I don't do my part, then it's very obvious, and I'm exposed.
And your fellow artists are gonna be pissed.
Oh, they're gonna be livid, right?
I mean, I'm like such a goody two shoes when it comes to school, but I can't tell you how many times I was like, God, like, why did this one person just not prepare? And now the rest
Get
of
your
us are
stuff
like
together.
suffering.
Yep. Yeah,
Ugh,
it's true.
the worst.
It
So
happens pretty
okay.
frequently.
So we learned some skills in school. So good for us. So what are you doing now? Tell us about your job, about your life. What's going on?
Okay. Well, my life is a little all over the place right now, but I am in Nashville. I'm an artist and a coach full time, and then I run the organization that I was telling you about, where I'm basically helping aspiring artists, which we were talking about. So I'm currently writing and performing and doing that kind of stuff. And as an artist mentor, I'm basically helping artists that are aspiring to be on the big stage, whether that means working them through their EP, finding their voice, what that means in the world, but also musically, guiding them through various different business things, emotional things, structuring their schedule and what that looks like in terms of laying out like marketing plans, all those kinds of things. So that's what I've spent a lot of my time doing. Now, I do work at Belmont and Lipscomb University. I think we talked about that before, but I work
Mm,
at both those universities part-time during the year. So that is kind of like my day to day. And then in my free time, I had been running different events and stuff for Vocal 360, and then obviously mentoring artists. And then whatever time I have left, I'm doing my own performing and writing. Uh,
yeah, which is
so.
like no time, I would
Yeah,
imagine.
yeah, no time during the school year. The beauty of this quarantine is that there's some extra time to dive into the things that I've always wanted to do. And I feel bad for the people that didn't quite find that right away. I knew that once. I mean, it took me about a week, to get over everything. But once I knew I was going to be in quarantine for a while, I was like, okay, what kind of stuff am I going to get my hands on next?
Yeah.
And just kind of went away with it. So
Totally. So I want to talk about something that I didn't even plan to talk about this, but I feel like
that's okay.
I'm just dying to ask you. So
Sure.
I feel like as an artist myself, sometimes I struggle where with this thing where I know that what I have to offer my students is really great. I know that if I have students who want to be professional singers, especially in musical theater, because that's kind of my specialty, I'm like, I
Uh-huh.
know how to help them. I know how to coach them. But at the same time, sometimes I struggle with my own qualifications because I'm like, yeah, I have 2 music degrees, but they're in classical music and I've never been on Broadway myself. So what makes me qualified? I mean, I in my heart I know that I'm qualified because I'm a good coach,
Sure.
but sometimes I kind of struggle with that. So you are over here working with Grammy and Tony winning artists and these artists who are really doing big things. Do you ever struggle with like how did I get here and why do these people trust me with their instrument?
Yeah, I guess so. I know what I'm really good at, and I also know what I'm not really good at. And
Mm,
so if I'm advising somebody, I've been fortunate that my network of people is really strong. And they're all very talented at their thing. So if I don't know something, I feel very comfortable passing along that information and working kind of as a group. Um, I, you know, it's interesting because there was a point as I was growing older and or growing I was going to say growing up, but I guess growing older and finding my way through my career, that I sat there and thought exactly that, like what do I have to offer, what do I have to teach these people? And And it took me a little while to figure out that like everything I had done to get to where I am today was helpful and effective, really, in teaching these young artists. And then anything that I haven't yet done, I was able to gather the people that surrounded me and part of my network and allow them to help elevate my young artists as well. So that was really actually helpful for me. You know, I'll tell you a quick story. When I first moved down to Nashville, um, I I didn't know anything about mentorship. I mean, I kind of knew a little bit about mentorship, and I knew that it was probably a good idea to have somebody that could help you. But it seems pretty rare for somebody to dedicate a lot of time to really getting your career going, you know? And
Yeah.
so I was talking to a couple of my friends that were in the industry, and they were advising me on two locations to go, either LA or Nashville. And Nashville wasn't on my radar at first. I actually was considering either New York City or LA. And then I realized didn't want to go into the New York City scene. I had a bunch of friends who had gone through it, and it was too much for me. I'd already been on the East Coast, so I wanted to do something else. Anyway, make a long story short, my the people that were advising me at the time suggested I try out Nashville, and one thing led to another, and I came down here. But when I first came down here, I realized I was a little in over my head. You know, I didn't know anybody. I knew nobody in the city. I didn't know anybody in the industry. I had just gotten out of my graduate degree. I was fortunate. I got two graduate degrees actually from OSU, one in performance and one in pedagogy. And then I had the singing health specialization certificate, which
Mm.
helped me out a lot. But still, I didn't have any real life experience. And one of the things that I think this is probably the most important thing that had happened to me once I had gotten down here, and this helped inform all of what I do now as a mentor myself. I reached out to like 20 or 25 of the most prominent voice teachers in Nashville. Now, I grew up outside of Bucks County. There's probably not even 25 voice teachers in Bucks County. But here in Nashville, there's a billion of them. So I went to the top voice coaches in Nashville, all the ones that work with all the celebrities and everything like that. And I reached out to them and I said, hey, listen, you know, I'm heading into town. My goal is to be one of the most sought after voice coaches in 5 years. Here's what I plan to do, you know? And of course, out of those 20, 25 people, 8 people got back to me. And I think 4 said that they would meet me for coffee. And then one actually suggested, she was the one, and I'll talk about her later, Judy Rodman. She was the one that actually suggested that we pass on information to one another. And now she's become my mentor. So all that to say, you know, I've reached a certain point in my life where, yeah, I haven't won a Grammy, and I hope to one day maybe, but I haven't won one yet. And but I am able to work with people that are better than me so that I can become better, and then obviously pass that on to the people that I work with. So
Yeah, no, that's really great advice. And in no way did I mean to project my own insecurities on
no,
you.
no,
I,
no,
I think it's something I just wanted to bring it up because I think it is something that at any level we all struggle with as an artist. And
sure.
I think, but the people who are out there like really doing the thing, like you're out there doing the thing and really working with amazing artists, like you had a process in a way that you got there. And I think that talking about our insecurities is a great way to figure out
Oh,
how do we get over
totally.
it, you know?
Totally. Yeah, I want to make one more comment about that too, because I've been doing a lot of reading and watching a lot of videos and stuff of these really, you know, successful people. And I've learned that, you know, at first, I think that's the thing. You can't just pretend that you know everything when you haven't, because the people that have been there, they can sniff that out. You know, they
Yeah,
know, you know, if you're going to pretend how to have a Grammy award winning album and you've never recorded an album, that's not going to work.
sure.
But I found the most successful thing that you can do is say, here's what I want to do. I'm not that great at it yet, but I'm coming to you for help because I admire your accolades. Right. And that's been the most wonderful thing in my career. And that has led to the greatest expansion of my own network. Is just saying, hey, you know, this is something that I aspire to do. I'm not claiming to be a professional or, you know, perfect at it by any means, but I really would love to work with this particular individual because they have some serious success in it.
Yeah. I love that you said that. And actually, the very first episode of my podcast, I had on a woman named Geraldine Anello, who is a Broadway musician. And she came here from France. And when she came here,
Wow.
she didn't actually speak any English. Like, so crazy. And now she's like this super successful Broadway musician. And she just wrote a book, and the book is coming out sometime soon. I'm not sure if COVID is kind of prolonged that. But
Sure.
anyway, we on the podcast we kind of talked about, how did you get where you are? And she said that she reached out. She simply reached out to the top creative professionals in her field. And I was like, how'd you do that? How'd you get in touch with these people? She's like, I don't know, sent an email. Like
Yeah.
it's so easy to do now, right? And
Yeah.
so she I guess looked up, I don't know how many people, 20, 30, 40, 50 people that she thought were kind of doing something that maybe she would want to do, or even if they weren't, who are the most successful touring musicians? She's a pianist. Who are the most successful touring
Okay.
pianists, or solo pianists, or pianists on Broadway, or conductors on Broadway, whatever it is. And she reached out, and now she wrote a whole book about it.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. And it's like,
Unbelievable.
I think sometimes we think, if we're starting at the bottom, at the very bottom, it's our first time. And then there's somebody at the tippy top. It's really easy to look at that person at the tippy top and be like, well, they don't want anything to do with me, but they were where you are once too.
Yes, exactly. And I think there's something charming about that, right? I found some even students that I'm working with that are going through the same issues at the same time that I was going through those issues. And I kind of look back, I see this with young tenors, young guys too. I look back and I'm like, man, that's what I looked like when I was 17 or 18 years old. Like that's what I sounded like. Those are the things that were going through my mind. And I think there's something really special about that. Somebody, not even somebody, I would say most people want to help.
Yeah.
And I think if you just understand that, most people want to help, but maybe they can't help out in the way that you need, and the best thing to do is ask for help, and to find the people that are willing to help. And if that person can't provide any service to you, they can generally pass it on to a friend or a colleague or something like that too.
Right. And I mean, in my experience, there's the two worst case scenarios are the first one is the person just literally will ignore you and won't respond.
Yeah.
Which, okay, maybe they didn't see it, or who cares?
Do, right? Yeah.
And the second worst thing, which stings a little at first, but you get it, you learn to get over it, is they just say no.
Yep.
And so what? For everyone who says no, there's going to be someone else who says yes.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. There's two forms of no's. And I don't know if this is a business tip or a sales tip. I can't remember how I heard this, but it's it's a no because or a yes if. So they're both no's. So it's like, yes, you can do this if you do this thing, or no, you can't do this because of whatever. So when you're reaching out to somebody and you are fortunate that you can get a hold of them, they might say, hey, no, I can't do that, unfortunately, because I'm no longer accepting any clients, And then the follow-up to that would be like, okay, well, when do you anticipate accepting clients? You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So even a negative, or what would seem to be a negative, something that would be a no, can actually work to your favor. And I've noticed in my own career, people that have turned me down for certain things, I look back and I'm like, yeah, I definitely thought I was way better than I was, or something like that, or I look back and I'm like, that was a trash recording. That was garbage, but you learn very quickly what it is that you can lean into. And I think that's really valuable. I think if you just have a perspective, a learning perspective, and you always consider yourself to be a student of your craft, I think that you can find some comfort in that.
Definitely. And I think as long as you're going out your reach outs in a respectable way, even if somebody says no, it's like, all right, well, that's on them, not on me. If you sent an unprofessional email and then they don't want to work with you, all right, well, think about how to reword your email. But, if you were very professional and very kind, it might feel embarrassing to you that they said no, but they're not even going to remember.
Exactly. And, if it comes from a point of just truthfulness, then I think it's going to really get through. I get messages every now and then too of people that are clearly just asking for like a favor, and they're not really helping or providing value, or even just acknowledging the fact that they need assistance. Then that just becomes a little selfish. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there is an art to it. I don't know how we got here, but there is an art to I just derailed our whole conversation.
No, this is good. I mean, this is something that's artists that we do experience all the time, because no artist is alone. We need other artists in order to be successful. And there's something to the art of reaching out to other artists. Like, that is a skill in itself.
Yeah, I would say networking is probably one of the largest things, and the most important things that you could possibly do. When I first moved down here to Nashville, and this is not to say that this is the perfect thing to do, but it's something that I did do. when I moved down here to Nashville, Rachel, have you been in Nashville?
I haven't. I was
Oh,
supposed to come in March and then quarantine.
oh man. So once this is all done, you have to come down and check out the city. It's pretty amazing. We'll go see live
Totally.
music or something.
Love it.
But so there's live music in every corner, every restaurant, coffee shop, everything. There's live music. And so I would just fill my schedule. So I would work 9 to 5:30 or 9 to 6 every day. And then starting at 7 o'clock, I would come home, have a bite to eat or something. Starting at like 7 or 7:30, about 2 or 3 times a week, I would go see live music. And I made business cards. So I would go up to the artist I would see, and I would just, depending on what kind of relationship I saw with the two of us, I would say, hey, listen, I love your music. I think it's fantastic. If you're ever interested in having another vocalist, here's my card. I'd love to work with you. Or, hey, I love what you're doing. If you're ever looking for a coach, these are the things that I've done and the artists that I've worked with and what they've accomplished. Here's my card. And so I still continue to do that now. But very quickly, my network of people just grew, tenfold within the first couple months of me being here. And I think that's important as artists. The friends that you surround yourself with, they can also be people that actually help you with your career. You can have a group of friends that you like to hang out with, but then you can also have a group of friends that you're close with. It doesn't have to be any different, but they're also just more like business friends or networking friends or music friends.
Yeah.
And that's something I think that's very valuable, especially in the climate that we're in today,
Yeah, that's a really hot tip, the thing about the business cards, because I mean, as a person who has business cards, I can't tell you how many times I've been a place where I would love to just give somebody my information and realize that I had the wrong wallet.
Oh, I know.
And it's like how many situations, right? How many times could I have potentially, made a client or made a friend or it's just added somebody to my network, regardless of how that pans out. I mean, it's amazing how, I could meet somebody who will never be a client and will never be, I don't know, maybe an integral part of my network, but all it takes sometimes is one person that, that person remembers you and sends you a referral or vice versa. Like you just never know who's going to benefit you in this business.
No, you don't. You never know. And I'm sure I have an example of it happening in my life. I know it's happened several times. I can't think of it off the top of my head, but it's so true. I mean, just putting your name out there, just offering yourself up as somebody that can provide a service or help to another person. And as long as you continue to keep your name at the forefront, I mean, these opportunities arise, right?
Yeah. So you just kind of described a whole scenario that unfortunately we cannot live out in this current time, because going to a bar is not possible. Seeing live music is not possible. Networking in person is not possible. So I want to talk about this little topic right here. Adapting during COVID. What the hell do we do?
Oh, man.
SOS.
I know, right? I have some things that I've done, but I'm curious, what have you done, Rachel? What kind of stuff have you gotten into?
Oh,
I know you're doing the podcast now.
Yeah, so podcast was totally a COVID project that will now absolutely continue. It was kind of one of those things where I was like, let's try it out. As a person who relies on or has relied in the past on all of my business being in person, I have really had to rethink how I'm going to run ship around here, because my average day was, and I mean, I know this doesn't include business, but how you take care of yourself is also a part of your business, right?
Oh, it is 100%. Yeah.
And my life was normally wake up, go to the gym's now closed. Okay, come home, teach some lessons. Okay, can't see people in person anymore. Then go over to the theater and have rehearsal, and then sometimes play a show. All 4 of those things that are a main part of my day, gone. Totally gone. At least as we know it. So I had to rethink. I mean, there were certain things, the gym, that wasn't going to happen. Started working out at home. Not as successful for me, but, trying.
I'm the same way.
It's hard. The theater, not happening. And rehearsal, not happening, because what is there to rehearse for? Since you can't do anything. So I really had to focus on the piece that I could change to be online, and that was the lessons piece. So I simply sent an email to all of my clients and said, hey, I'm more than happy to continue this online. If it's not a format that works for you, You know what? I might not have even said that. I think, no, you know what I said? I said, hey, I'm not seeing people in person anymore. Next week, let's start lessons online. The end.
Boom.
I think
Done.
I didn't even ask people because
Doesn't need no explanation. Doesn't
because
need.
people knew they weren't going to be coming. But I think if you put it in their hands and say, hey, do you want to try this? Most people were skeptical. I mean, I had a student who the first week she was like, hey, I'm just not really sure that I like the idea of doing lessons on Skype or whatever it is. So I think I'm going to
Mhm.
take a couple weeks off. And then when it's safe to see you in person again, we'll do that. And then a couple weeks went by. And of course, things got worse.
Oh
And then
yeah.
she was like, okay, I'll try it. And I don't know if it's just because I have incredibly loyal students or if it's just because of the way that I went about it, but everybody minus one person
Oh, unbelievable.
converted to online
That's great. That's
every
great.
time. Yeah.
I'm trying to think. Yeah, I think mine were pretty successful with doing it too. Luckily, the students that I have, the artists that I work with, are all pretty tech savvy, so it's not like we ran into many issues.
Are you working with
Mm.
mostly adults?
Nobody under the age of like 18, 17 or
Okay.
18.
See, like I teach a ton of kids. Like
Yeah.
like we're talking elementary school, and my one client who didn't continue. I say client, it's so funny because it's a literal 5-year-old.
Client.
Literally 5 years old. And the parents were like, I just don't think we can manage this. And I was like, yeah, I get it.
Oh, keeping the attention span of a 5-year-old on like Zoom or something. Yeah, I can't imagine that's going to work.
Yeah.
It's
Not
bad enough trying to keep the attention of an 18-year-old guy, you know.
Oh my God. Yeah. So yeah, so I converted that and then I started thinking, okay, if this is going to continue online, what else can I do to bring myself to, first of all, just bring myself some joy because I'm sitting at
Yes.
home all by myself and I'm bored.
Bored in
And
the house and in the house bored.
yeah, exactly. Thanks, TikTok. Like, no, I started a TikTok. Literally, that's what I did.
Yeah, I saw that.
I started a TikTok. I started a business Instagram account. Actually, before all that, though, I just decided I was going to revamp my website. I found a graphic designer. Thanks, shout out to Morgan, who did everything you see on the screen in front of you. All the colors, all the branding. She's amazing. But yeah, I just kind of started with the website and it's spiraled out from there. And I'm very curious to see going forward how artists are going to be adapting to this new online climate.
Well, it's kind of wild, right? From what I understand, I don't think any of the major touring acts are going to be touring through 2021. I think like July or something. Nashville Symphony down here, they canceled their entire season through July 2021, I believe, as well. So it's just it's wild. It's kind of crazy. I think all of what you said is really important because and what you did too, right? Because you took a look at what you were currently working with. You didn't jump careers, right? It's not like you're going to
Right.
become an accountant or something like that. But you looked at the things that would help benefit your career, even though, you might not be be able to go out and do some live shows or perform and play a company for a musical theater show or something like that. But you actually took a step back and said, what is really valuable during this time. I think that's important for artists. I think, everybody needs a certain amount of time. It's on an individual basis, to get over the impact of all of this, really,
Yeah.
and what that means to you. Some people are more fortunate than others, and some people are still struggling through it. But I think adapting is the biggest thing, right? It's the A word, right? How do you adapt and plan for something that's going to be valuable in the future? We're talking about the stuff that you did, right? You launched a business account. You launched a podcast, a successful podcast. You have your website that's being revamped. And, I think that's another thing to talk about is reaching out within your community of other musicians and other creatives to say, hey, I need this thing done, because I've neglected it. And then here you're supporting another artist that would be a graphic designer or,
Right.
videographer or something like that, It's just
Yeah.
important.
I've been trying to support other artists during this time, but so one thing I do want to say, and I think I may have mentioned it on another podcast episode in the past, is I'm very fortunate to be a single person who didn't lose any money because of this pandemic. And I understand that I am in a very privileged position where I had I was blessed with the gift of time and was able to
Yes.
expand upon my business. And I've had a little bit of an issue listening to some podcasts where people I really look up to have been like, well, you have time now, so why aren't you doing more? If you're not doing more, you're being lazy. And if you have lost your job or you have lost family members or friends because of
I
this
know.
pandemic, this is a crazy time. And I understand that I'm in a very privileged position where I'm an artist who has money and time now to do more
Yes.
creative things. That is not the case for everybody. So I do want to emphasize that this has been my experience, and I realize that I am fortunate in this time.
That's really important too. When you look at it, I mean, both you and I are not full-time performers, right? I'm speaking for you, Rachel. I'm sorry, but I would assume you're not a full-time performer.
No, not at all.
I know that you're playing for some shows and stuff, but I didn't know if you were performing full-time.
No.
So that's important to recognize. You know, we did not rely on every single dollar that we were getting coming from merch sales or live performances or touring or whatever it is that you're doing. And then to have all of that taken away and no other opportunity. That's a crazy thing when you think about it. You know, if you're on Broadway and your show closed, okay, let's go bartend for a couple months and make a lot of money and then figure things out. Okay, well, now all the bars are closed. So what am I going to do? Well, I can't hop up to another show. The opportunities that I could have, bartending, being in a restaurant, whatever, those are gone. So now what am I left with, you know? And
Yep.
that's traumatizing, I can assume, you know.
Yeah.
That's tough. I'm in the same position. I'm pretty privileged that I didn't really feel too much of the impact. Sure, like a lot of the live stuff that I had going for me and the gigs that I had lined up, they're gone, you know. But I certainly was not relying on all of these live performances to pay my bills for the next 6 months. I had a couple of friends that were overseas that got stuck overseas. I mean, they're fortunate that they didn't run out of money or something like that. You know, they had a gig and all of a sudden the next 3 weeks are canceled and they can't fly back home. You know, it's crazy.
Right.
But,
totally. So has your business shifted in any unique ways during this time?
Yes, actually. So, thank you for asking me that question. Actually, that's
Yeah, well,
important.
I asked you and then you asked me. I'm like, this is my show. I don't know if they want to hear about that.
Well, yeah, I just think it's important. I mean, I have some people that are probably listening too, and I think what you're doing is wonderful. So
thank you.
But if you're going to give me the stage, fine, I'll take it. All right.
Yeah. Go ahead. You're a tenor, right?
Yeah.
They like attention.
I see how it is. Yeah. The tenor talks, I guess. That's the next podcast, tenor talks.
Wait, actually, that's brilliant. You should totally do
tenor
that.
Talks. I'm gonna
just have a bunch of tenors on. I will probably never listen because that would probably be super annoying. But
oh my god, yeah, I don't know if I would be able to get a word in my own podcast.
So true.
Hey, I have something I'd like to say. You
oh God.
What were we even saying? I got the already.
What have you been doing during COVID?
So how's my business changed? Well, yeah, I've done a lot more online, like everybody else has done. And I have a lot of friends that have been really upset with the way that lessons have been going online. And frankly, you know, I got over that pretty quickly because I was thinking, you know, I think about it and I say, okay, we have an opportunity now to be really specific or nuanced in a different way. Mm-hmm. Like if you're doing a live recording, now, again, I work with artists that are producing music or writing songs or, you know, doing sync deals and that kind of stuff. And so if they're writing a song, then we can really nitpick and be nuanced and play recordings and do all different kinds of things online where we wouldn't be able to do it in a studio setting, you know, live acoustically. So there's a lot of benefit to that too. One big thing that I've done with my mentor, Judy Rodman, who I was telling you about, is something called Cloud Rounds. And that's a really cool songwriting round, a virtual round, if you will, that we're doing. And that's going to be happening once a month. We already had our first one last month, and the upcoming round will be hosted by myself. At let's see, I think it's July 11th, sometime around that time period, or maybe the beginning of the following week, the 15th or something along those lines. But I'll start publicizing that in a little bit. And that's been really cool. So we have several artists that get on, and it's a session that's partly pre-recorded, and then it's sort of like a Q&A, and then they talk about their rehearsal process, and then their live music and their experiences and their upcoming music, all those sorts of things. So it's really cool, and it's really great for engagement. with their fans, their current fans, and then anybody that's interested in listening to music, in a semi-live setting. So that's what I've been up to. Cloud Rounds is another big thing. And then you and I were talking about this too. I am going to dive into the podcasting world.
Yes, I'm so
Yeah,
excited for
I'm
you.
so excited. I'm so excited. It's a little nerve-wracking, but I have, like I said, I'm really blessed with a beautiful network of people that are successful in many different ways. And the cool thing is, when I looked at my network of people, I looked at what they all do and what they're really great at and successful at, and they're all creative in different ways. And I thought, oh my goodness, this is the perfect opportunity to engage with them. I'm a podcast listener myself. I love that information. I love how they draw from all different walks of life, all different disciplines. And so that's what I've decided to do. The running title was Neuro Notes, which was the exploration of music and science and the creative human experience and how they all relate. So that was the working title. I'm working on a new one. I'm rebranding it a little bit because Neuro Notes is not quite fitting with the way that I wanted it to. But I'm really excited. I'm really excited for some upcoming talks.
It's going to be awesome. And I would love to brainstorm with you behind the scenes. I've had so much fun just putting this together. And yeah, you're totally right. The title is really, really important because, like you said, you had these topic ideas and they didn't really seem to be like vibing with your title. And that's really important because you don't want to pigeonhole yourself if you don't want to be pigeonholed. If you decided to do an entire podcast on vocal health and it was called, I don't know, Vocal Health with Mark, I don't know, like that would make sense. But like I've been so happy with my title, Aspiring Artist, because it's so, I don't want to say it's so generic, but like it really allows me to do a lot.
Oh, it totally does. It totally does. It's broad enough so that it encompasses a lot of things, and then you can be really specific within that. That's sort of what I was going for with Neuro Notes. Neuro being cognition and science and the brain, and notes like music note. So, coincidentally, it's also the name of a not a pamphlet, but like a shortened book for medical students. So that's not going to work, I don't think. But
yeah, that's fair. You don't really want people looking you up. Although I did have a podcast guest on, Lee Hirschman. He has a store called the Band Shop at SHOPPE, and they do instrument repair. And there is a marching band retailer that's also called the Band Shop. And he actually said that they have this agreement now where like he promises never to sell marching band stuff and they promise never to repair instruments, but they have each other's phone number. So if somebody calls, they can redirect.
Oh, that's cool. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to contact Neuro Notes, the book. Neuro Notes. If anyone from Neuro Notes is listening right now, I'm sorry, and I'll be talking to you shortly.
Do you think it's one of the 8 people listening to our live?
It might be like my mom and my dad. No, I'm just kidding. They're probably busy doing other stuff.
No, I feel that. I asked my mom. I was like, "Are you gonna listen?" And she's like, "I don't know, maybe later."
once it gets published into a podcast, right?
She laughs at me because I always talk about her on the podcast, but it's like she's a big part of my life, so why not?
It's a huge part of your life. Yeah, you just posted about her on Instagram.
I know. Well, she listens to the show on her morning walk, and she's like, "I'm just listening to you," and then all of a sudden you give me a shout out, and it's like you're right here with me. I'm like, "Oh,
that's funny.
Nice.
That's cute. That's cute."
Yeah. So let's redirect a little bit here. So you had mentioned earlier about helping artists to find their voice as a coach, but I have a feeling that doesn't only mean singing voice.
You're exactly right.
So what does that mean? Because I think that finding your voice as an artist in any sort of discipline is essential. And by finding your voice, I think it really just means finding, what inspires you and what you stand for. And so what does that look like for you and your clients?
Amen. You hit the nail on the head again. You're so good, Rachel. I love it.
I'm trying to be a little forward thinking here.
There you go. Well, I use like Lady Gaga and Pink as 2 examples. Lady Gaga, if you just observe her trajectory and her career and all of the different things that she's done, she's always been the same Lady Gaga, except for when she did Shallow, you know, on A Star Is
Right.
Born. But even still, like she brings her own essence into that song. And if you listen to the video of the writing process, they actually, part of the song, they included something that like, what would Gaga do kind of thing.
Right.
In the shadow, the shalala, whatever that la la thing is. I can't
Yeah.
remember.
In the
But
shower, la 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 la.
yeah, la 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 la. Yeah.
I'm gonna change
Anyway,
the voice to quotes because we don't really mean singing
on your
voice.
voice. Got it. Yeah. So anyway, what that comes down to, and how I help my artists find that, is obviously, yes, it has to do with your singing voice, right? But it also has to do with what you stand for, how you communicate to your audience, who your audience is, what you have to say. You know, what is your purpose in the world? What legacy do you leave behind? Is really what it comes down to. And the vehicle that we use is our voice. We're fortunate that our voice and our music is the thing that we use to communicate with other people. So if I'm an artist and I'm an aspiring artist and I'm trying to figure out what it is that I need to do to find my voice, I try to push my artists in the direction of, first of all, singing various different styles of music, but understanding the difference between dynamic and power. Excuse me.
Mm.
So dynamic can just simply be loud or soft, right? And everywhere in between. Power, someone that has a powerful voice, there's a lot of different elements included in a powerful voice. So when I teach singers, I don't teach them to have the ability to sing loud or to sing softly with accuracy. I teach them the ability to have a powerful voice. That is communication, interpretation, how you deliver your message. That could include the core of your sound and loudness and quietness and everything in between. But what is it that you're doing to evoke a response, right? Who are you singing to? Judy Rodman, again, my mentor, she's wonderful. She always talks about who is the heart that you're singing to, right? And so when I'm asking my artists, when I'm challenging them to find their voice, it's more importantly about discovering themselves and who they are as an individual and what their music is about and who they're trying to help. You know, you in a way, I think every artist feels this, but when you're creating art, you're fulfilling something within inside yourself, you know?
Mm.
And when you reflect upon that and you turn that outward and you realize the people that are consuming your art are also learning and being inspired by the things that you do, it's really empowering and very powerful. So there's various different ways of discovering that, but it's really more than just having a good singing voice. It's the way that you treat other people. It's the way that you hold yourself, the way that you have your brand. Power in your voice is not just again, what you can do vocally, it's how you communicate your message and deliver that through the vehicle of your voice.
Yeah. Oh, that's so awesome.
Yeah.
And I really like that you said that. I kind of had an experience like that today. I mean, on a day-to-day basis, what I'm mostly doing is helping the singers to find their singing voice. And
Hmm.
I find a lot of fulfillment in that, when you're able to help a singer get over a vocal hurdle.
Yeah.
It feels good. If it's great for them, it's great for
Excellent.
you, everything. But today actually something new happened for me was that a friend reached out to me and she's absolutely she's a friend of mine, but not somebody. She's not on my speed dial list. She's not
Yeah,
in my
sure.
group of closest friends. So this just goes to show that you can really have an impact on all sorts of people without even realizing. And she
Hmm.
texted me and she said, "Hey, I just wanted you to know that I've been listening to your podcast, and because of you, I was inspired to start my online business." And
Oh my goodness.
I literally, like, I teared up. I have to tell her this. She actually listened to the show, so I'm sure she'll come across this and be like, "You're talking about me." But that was an impact that I never expected to have. And as artists, I think sometimes we get really one track minded of, okay, I'm a singer, so I aim to inspire people with my singing, or I'm a teacher, I aspire to inspire people with my teaching. But I never thought, oh, I have a podcast, and because of the things
Hmm.
that I do there, or the people that I bring on, or whatever the case may be, that now somebody will be inspired. I mean, that's always my catchphrase when somebody's like, "What's your podcast about?" I'm like, "Well, it's called Aspiring Artist Podcast. It's the goal is to inspire creative people to do creative things." And
Amazing.
the fact that it worked with somebody, I'm like, if
It
that
worked.
if
Yes.
that happens with one person, I'm like, I feel
Yeah.
accomplished now.
Yeah.
I feel accomplished now.
It's amazing, right? How that happens. I think when you lean into the things that you're good at and also that you're passionate about, those things happen more often. And I'm so happy that that happened for you because that's a wonderful experience. Um, I think as musicians and as artists, we're gifted, very gifted, not just in like we've been blessed by having good skills, but we're gifted with the ability to communicate on a really deep and personal level. And I feel bad for people who don't have that ability, who can't see that raw emotion or that deep emotion. But I think that with this gift, I mean, it's important that we use that for positivity and to share in the community. For a long time, I had a difficult, well, it was lots of cognitive dissonance with academia and singing in academia, because when you get into the collegiate world or high school or whatever, and you're making music, there's a threshold that you have to reach, and there's different tests and whatever quizzes and whatever courses you have. But there's this sort of academic music making that fulfills a role. And it's good because it allows you to grow and allows you to meet these specific thresholds. But I think I really discovered the power of music as I started to do my music on my own and interface with people outside of academia. And I really challenge the college students or people in high school that are making music to look at the effect that it has on you and your friends and the people around you, and don't take it for granted. It's not just about getting good grades and all that kind of stuff, but there's a special amount of power in that. Again, I don't remember what book this was from or whatnot, but there's this sort of naivete, how you say it, of a novice artist and the way that they love and enjoy music, and then an expert artist and the way that they love and enjoy music. And there's this sort of circle that encapsulates that. They're sort of on the same plane, right? When you're just diving into learning music and consuming it for the first time, you're bright-eyed and bushy-tailed and the world is your oyster. And then you get into this music has to be a certain way. There's all these rules and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
And you lose a little bit of that appreciation and that community, that music making that really breathes life into other people. And then by the time you get out to the other end, and I'm happy to say that I think I'm getting there now, you start to realize that there's a really powerful message and synergistic experience that can happen with making music. And it shouldn't be something that's taken for granted.
Yeah. Oh, that's so true. I say that all the time, that I feel like I get in my own way because of some of the knowledge that I do have. Like, I just, as a stupid example, just with singing, I've always really had issues with tongue tension, but I didn't know that I had issues with tongue tension until college, when my teacher pointed it out to me. And it's like I never even thought about my tongue or that being something that could be a source of tension. Then it took me like 10 years to literally get over that.
Yeah.
And my students who come to me have never had a voice lesson in their life, and they can like easily sing an ah vowel with no tongue tension. I'm like, damn you. Like, you realize how good the fact that you can sing a clear ah vowel, and it took me 10 freaking years to be able to do that. It's like sometimes when you have knowledge, you just get in your own way. So
it's true.
It's really great both ways. Fane says amen. So thanks, girl.
Oh, I love Fane. Fane is so sweet. I worked with Fane at Lipscomb University. She's gone on to do some passion projects now. She's a wonderful teacher and a great singer. Really sweet. Really, really sweet.
Oh, that's awesome.
Thanks, Fane.
Thanks so much for tuning in. Oh, wow. So let's dive in a little bit here with some knowledge. Let's hit up the listeners with
Let's do it.
with some tips.
Okay.
So I know you've got tips, Mark, because you give tips to people all the time. So let's just lay some tips on people. Anyone who's listening who is an aspiring artist, or even is aspiring artist curious, or maybe has a creative hobby that they haven't quite delved into, or even if they're a professional musician, I think any tips for creative people can apply to people all over the spectrum. So do you have any pieces of advice that you find can take people to the next level?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So when I was going through, I'll just reflect on my personal career. When I was developing my career and figuring out what I wanted to do, it's very easy to say, well, so-and-so is a lawyer, or they're a doctor, or they're a something, and there's a title to it. You and I were just discussing earlier that we were in vocal performance. So we were going to be like an opera singer, but
Right.
we didn't just want to do opera. We wanted to do other things. So one of the biggest tips that I always start with all of my artists, and I think this is really important, is to rather than identifying what it is specifically that you'd want in your life, like what you want to be in terms of having a name tag, right?
Right.
I think it's important to craft out the lifestyle that you would like to live and be truthful to yourself. And so that's really, really empowering. And I'll tell you why. Here's what happens. So if I'm an aspiring artist and say I want to be on Broadway, okay, and I talk to, I'm just going to say a young tenor, right? So I'm talking to a young tenor and I say, okay, fantastic, you want to be on Broadway, great. So did you ever think about having kids? Yeah, I want to be a dad one day. Okay, would you like to stay at home with your kids, or do you want to be traveling, or do you want to be on Broadway? You know, what does that kind of look like for you? And sometimes they'll say, well, I want to be home with my kids so that I can help raise them. Okay, well, you do realize that you're going to be performing 8 shows a week, and here's what your schedule is going to be like. And then let's identify what you want in your life and how does that compare? And maybe that's exactly what you want. Maybe that's not totally what you want, but you can make that work, right? So what happens is then you begin to say, okay, well, I want to bite off a piece of this, and then I want to take a little bit of that. And, how are you going to make your money? Would you like to make your money performing around the world as the #1 opera singer? Okay, if you're going to do that, I know 2 people that I can call up tomorrow. They actually don't have homes. They don't own a home. They just travel the world as the #1 opera singer. So if your goal is to have a home and have a family or stay in one city, that's probably not going to make sense for you to be, the world's best traveling opera singer. Right? So now that's a little bit more like, that can be kind of scary, but if you are looking at it from a really, from a growth perspective, right, you can identify what you like and certainly what you don't like. And that just helps make the world a lot smaller so you can make decisions. Okay. And then go ahead. Were you going to say something?
No, yeah, I mean, that's just a really amazing, tangible piece of advice that I've definitely followed, but I don't know that anybody's ever told me that. And I like that you actually articulated it, because I mean, this can be as big or as small as you want, but even just identifying, like, I'm the type of person who really loves to travel versus I'm the type of person that's a homebody.
Yeah.
Right away, you can cut a lot of options out, one way or the other.
Totally. And the beauty of all this too is, I love my parents and I love my family. But what they expect from me all the time might not be what is the best thing for me,
Yeah.
And that goes for all parents, and they love you and they want the best for you, obviously. And they usually can look outside in, but it's up to you to determine what's best for you. Right. So I think that's a conversation. And this is another tip that I have with my artists. Artists are very emotional. Doesn't matter what you are. If you're creative, you're very emotional. And whether you're in touch with your emotions or you're just living around them, we're emotional people, right? And I think it's important to be truthful with yourself and to say, okay, what is it that I want in life? Who am I? What makes me tick? What do I like and what do I not like? And the beauty of living in the world that we're living in, it's a little skewed now, it's a little different, but we have choices. We have choices that we can make on a regular day, minute to minute, to help guide our life. And if we identify what it is we want in our life, it's very easy, like you said, to identify what doesn't belong in our life. And that's the like meta version of a tip as an aspiring artist. If you want to do anything, identify the life you want to live and go after that. Now, if we're talking about, sorry.
Oh yeah, no, it's I like the video, because then it's like, where are they going to say something? No, and I think just to piggyback off of that, it is also okay if that vision changes. And that is something that I have absolutely struggled with. I mean, just in the last couple of months, my vision has changed. Because I've always thought I'm not a homebody. I do like to travel and I like the opportunity to travel, but I like some level of consistency in my life. And I've always thought, I'm going to have this home studio. I'm going to teach lessons from my house. And I've always said, if I'm going to move 10 miles away, I might as well move across the country, because I'm going to have to totally start over. Now, because of everything going on in the world, my business has completely converted to online, and it's gotten me thinking, well, now I can take my business on the road, and I can have my clients, and I can also move around. And I think maybe a part of me
Hey, Rachel, I think we're back now.
Can you hear me?
I can, yes.
So, fun fact, I have a new computer on the way. Because my computer does a super fun thing where it shuts down.
Oh no.
And yeah, it's super fun. So yeah, probably my sound is a little bit different because I'm not coming through my microphone, and it usually takes about like 20 more seconds, and then it will.
That's okay.
Log back in.
I'll just keep talking and do my thing. The irony is Craig. Hi, Craig. If you're still listening, thanks for checking out the podcast. He just wrote great audio. Now I don't know if he's being facetious because it happened at the exact same time, and I would not be surprised if that was coming from Mr. Knudsen.
Oh my God.
No, I appreciate it, Craig. Thanks for checking in.
There
Hope you're doing well.
We're the joys of technology, everybody.
Make sure you're on the Audio Technica, by the way.
Oh, did my mic switch over here? Let's see. Thank you, Scarlett. Okay. Does my sound feel okay?
Say that again.
Is my sound okay now?
Yeah, that should be pretty good, I think.
Okay, cool. It says I'm back on my mic, so
okay.
I'm hoping. Okay. Yeah, it's going through there. So that's great. Okay, sorry everybody. Technical difficulties, which is super fun. Okay, great. Select correct microphone. Thanks, Dad. Am I back? Am I good? The podcast master himself is commenting. Select the right microphone. Thanks, Dad. I appreciate it. I'm pretty sure I'm back now.
Cool.
Okay. So
tips.
Tips. Oh, so we were just talking about the ability to travel, and I think that there was a part of me that was suppressing a little bit of what I wanted because I thought, oh, I've built this great business for myself. Why would I pick up and leave? That's a terrible idea. I have steady money. I have clients that I love.
Mm-hmm.
If I move, then I'm just gonna have to start the same exact thing over. And the problem with what I was doing was I wasn't allowing myself to actually do what I do best and be creative and think outside of the box. I was very narrow-minded, and I thought to myself, I've built this business, so I'm just gonna run with that. But why? Why can't my business adapt and grow with me? And the answer, I was wrong, and it can. And it's sad that it took a pandemic for me to realize that. But but I'm grateful. I'm grateful now that I realize my business can move around, and my vision for my life has changed. So exactly what you said. I think it's great as an artist, identify what you want for your life, but also be okay if that changes with you.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I'm saying. Like sometimes if you're really specific, like I'm going to live in this city and I'm going to do this thing, sometimes it doesn't quite line up. And then if you really rely on that, it could be really tough to deal with, Another point I want to make too is constantly reevaluating this. Like where I thought I was going to be a couple of years ago versus what I want to do now, not even close, man. Not even close. And when I came to Nashville, I thought that I was probably just going to be voice teaching a lot and, being the best voice teacher there could be. And that's great. And I think I want to do that still. And I'm still aspiring to do that. I'm still teaching at a high level with great students. But also, I've dug deeper into the passion projects that I wanted to do. I wanted to start an organization. I've always wanted to do a podcast. I'm actually in the process of maybe developing an EP coming out soon with a good friend of mine. So there's possibility there too. And I think if you continue to reevaluate, you have the ability to do some really wonderful things.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I love that piece of advice. So any more hot tips before we roll on over to the next?
Hot tips. Surround yourself with positive people, positive people that strive for success, and but also surround yourself with people that are going to tell you how it is. I love my mom. I love my mom dearly. And the best thing that she does for me is I could send her a video clip and say, "What does this sound like?" She'll be like, "Not for me, man. Like, no, not good." And
Mm,
now I respect her because she's one of the commoners. She appreciates music. She's got a good ear, and she knows what the threshold is for the common listener. Where I think I'm doing all this artistry and all this kind of stuff. Nope, she'll tell me how it is. So, and I have other people too that are even in the industry with that I can go to and say, "Hey, what do you think about this idea?" And they're going to be like, "Mark, I love you. Terrible idea."
mm.
Or, there's people around you that are like, "Hey, listen, you mentioned you've been wanting to do this and you haven't stepped up to do it. Like, you can do it. You got to do this. This is something you need to do." So I think that's important. I think you need to identify that as well.
Yeah, definitely surround yourself with people who will tell you the truth, but also know that if you want to do something and other people aren't supportive, it doesn't mean that you can't try it anyway.
Amen.
It's very
Amen.
easy to let other people, especially as an artist, we tend to be sensitive. And if my voice teacher or one of my mentors said to me, "Hey, I don't think you should do that thing," I'd probably take it pretty to heart and consider not doing that thing.
Oh
But
yeah.
if there was a part of me that was like, I want to try it anyway, try it.
Yes. Oh man. Oh, that is so true. Rachel, I know you and I have both had the similar experiences with this, but if I listened to every single person that told me that my voice wasn't good or that I would never become a professional musician or anything like that, I'd be in a totally different career.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is that kept me going. I think just this natural drive that I was seasoned with and supported with my family, because they've always been really positive. But yeah, I've heard things like your voice isn't good enough to be in a choir. Um, and that was from a prominent director when I was singing my first role. We're not going to get into that, but I got hired for another project, and the director pulled me aside in front of everybody and said, "I don't understand why you were hired for this show. I should have gotten somebody else."
Oh
Um,
no.
I was told by someone that I trusted that there was no way that I could have a successful career in music, and that I was better off just stopping right now. Uh, yeah, so all these different things, and it hurts, man. It really hurts. It's terrible. It's the worst thing. But also, if it's a part of you, and like you were saying before, even if people are saying, "Hey, that's a bad idea," and you truthfully, down to the core of your essence, believe that you can do it and it's a good idea, and that it's going to fulfill something in you positively, then you better believe you got to do it.
Yeah, I really like Tim's comment here from the audience. Better try it and tweak it and try again rather than regret it.
Amen.
Um, it's so true. I mean, look, if you're doing something and you're getting really negative feedback, unless that person's a total bitch, there might be a reason they're giving you the negative feedback, but that doesn't mean that you have to quit. It
No.
just means that you can readjust. And on the opposite end of the spectrum too, don't always listen to the negative voices in your head, because that will also make you quit. If somebody's saying something negative to you, take it, work on it, take it into a positive. But if you're saying something negative to yourself,
Oh,
go find somebody who's going to encourage you. You shouldn't give up just because you think you're not good enough. We are always our own worst critic.
I
Always.
have two more tips. I could go on for days, Rachel. You can't give me this platform. So one is small baby steps, and the other one is repeated positive thoughts. So you were just mentioning, talking to yourself and hearing the negative feedback from yourself is the worst thing you can do. And everybody does this. Everybody does this. Even the best people do it. But something that I've practiced, and I believe it or not, I learned this from somebody on an airplane ride one time. She's a really prominent coach for, not vocal coach, but like coach for corporate leaders and stuff like that. And she has a kid that is actually a genius. He's literally a genius. And she's raising this child, and she was talking to me about all these things that she does for him. And the first thing that they say every morning, and I do this every morning, is today's going to be a great day, and I'm going to be better than I was yesterday. It's the first thing I say every morning. Doesn't matter if today's going to suck. It's a miserable day. I didn't sleep. My back hurts, whatever. I'm getting old, whatever it is.
Yeah.
But I always say that. It doesn't matter. And I feel so excited to start the day fresh because it feels like a clean slate. And then she said at the end of the day, she and her son, they talk about whatever they did that day in bed. And then she asked him to say something to the effect of like, what are some things that you did really well today? And what are you excited about tomorrow? And I do my own version of that every night. And so I think that's really valuable. I pass that on to my artists too. It's like, if you have a big project coming up, or if you have, things that are stressing you out, giving yourself the peace of mind, giving yourself the permission at night to go to sleep and say, I did my best today. I'm going to give it my all tomorrow, but for now I'm just going to relax and then start fresh tomorrow morning. It's huge. It changed my life, honestly. And then the last thing that I'll pass on in this little tip, I guess, is small baby steps. Once you identify your goal, right, whatever it may be, say it's to produce an album, it's kind of like going to the gym in the morning. It sucks to go to the gym in the morning, and we always figure out so many excuses. You and I both know this. If we're going to go to the gym, we're going to wake up and be like, you know what? It's too close to when I'm having breakfast, so I'm probably I'm not going to feel great, or I have to get ready and go later, so I'm going to be all red. No, I can't do that. Like, it's not going to work. I can't fit it into my schedule, right?
Yep.
So it's just like when you're going to the gym, just simply putting your clothes on to go to the gym is the first step. So if your goal for anything is to get that EP, or I'm using this because that's what a lot of my artists are doing, or get sync deal or something, or even if it's, becoming a better singer or artist, creative, whatever, get up and do the very first step, just the smallest of small, whatever it is, do that little thing and do it successfully. And believe it or not, the more you get accustomed to doing that, the more those positive thoughts start to roll in, and the more you start to become productive and more productive and lean more in towards your goal.
Yeah, that's really great advice. I mean, I was just struggling with that actually myself only last night. I started a YouTube channel. Well, I've had this YouTube channel since literally 2011, and it's just been like little things I've posted over the years. And I decided, as a part of my brand, that I want to start posting consistent videos with consistent branding and graphics and all that. And the live podcasts go to my YouTube channel, so I figure might as well, make it a thing.
Yeah.
And so I decided that as a part of my channel that I want to post live unedited voice lessons.
God bless you.
Oh, and you know what? I thought it was such a good idea. And I still do, because I think people who are really curious about singers, which I would imagine is a lot of the population, because people just like to listen to music and they don't understand what goes on behind the scenes. We don't always end up with this perfect polished product. There's so much that goes into it. And so I thought, my students are so talented and amazing. But people are only seeing the talented, amazing videos that they put out there. What if they could really see the raw, unedited, behind the scenes version of what's going on? And so a couple of my students agreed to do it with me, and we recorded a video, and I uploaded it, and I was watching it, and all I could think was, wow, I look terrible. I sound so uneducated. And or whatever the case may be, it was like negative thought after negative thought after negative thought. And then I was like, you know what? Fuck it. Just fuck it. I mean, the whole point of this is to show that we are not perfect. And I am educated. I have a master's degree in vocal pedagogy. Like I do know what I'm talking about. My style is just laid back and conversational. So I'm not over here trying to sound like the most educated person on the block. Me and my student both had our hair in a bun on the top of our head, no makeup. It's the middle of the day. It's raw. It's unedited. And so you know what? In the description, I wrote it up and I said, this is not glamorous. This is really what goes on. But it took me, I mean, not that long, from last night to this morning, to come to that realization, but I needed to put it away, but I needed to get it out there on the internet, and I needed to put it away, and I needed to come back and say, you know what? It's okay. Stop judging yourself. Stop judging yourself, or you're never going to do anything. It's never going to be perfect enough. It's never going to be great enough. So why not put yourself out there in the most raw and exposed form possible? Then when you put something polished out there, it's going to be like night and day.
Yeah, it's really true. It's really true. And I don't think a lot of people realize that even the best, like most talented creatives out there, they have a similar dialogue. Now they navigate that differently than we do, probably because
Mm-hmm.
we're in the midst of it, and maybe we don't have that platform, but they go through the exact same thing too. And if every single time they created a song or wrote something and they said, oh well, it's probably going to suck or it's probably not going to be good, you probably wouldn't listen to them and you'd start to believe them.
Yeah.
So if you would believe them, you're going to believe yourself too.
Yeah. Totally. I'm really glad that I got over that because I think it's important. It's important to show yourself exposed. I mean, as an artist, if you can't criticize yourself, how are you supposed to take criticism from other people? Like you
Yeah.
might as well laugh at yourself so nobody else can laugh at you.
Mm-hmm. It's true.
So, Mark, I want to know, what are you doing to continue growing as an artist? Because as teachers, we're teaching, but how are we growing?
As an artist myself, I talked to a lot of different creatives about this. And for a long time, I guess I thought that when I became a teacher, I just would have to read up on everything and watch all these videos and learn from other people. And then I would be the best teacher. But honestly, if you're doing it and you're actively doing it and trying out your own techniques and learning from other people, that's how you become the best teacher. That's how you really, you grow. So for me as an artist, I've taken the time to, I bought this mic a couple months ago. I'm doing some of my own recordings. I'm always pushing myself to learn more. I'm fortunate. I love learning and I love being a student. For a very long time, I used to approach a project, and if I couldn't do it really quickly or figure it out right away, I'd get really discouraged. But thankfully, actually, music was pretty helpful in knowing that it's always going to be a process. It's always going to be a learning process and a growing process. But so I've been working on my voice often, and as a singer and as a coach, I make sure that I'm still singing and pushing myself as often as possible. Business wise, I love to do a lot of reading. I'm really interested in business and entrepreneurship, which is how you and I connect actually too on a lot of
Yeah.
levels. So I've just been watching a lot of YouTube videos and a lot of clips of professionals and their business and how they're really pushing themselves forward. I've actually spent a lot of time now. I'm kind of going all over the place, but I spent a lot of time watching webinars. That's been my new thing. In fact, I just got a notification. TikTok obviously is really hot right now. I was talking to a couple of my artists about doing a music campaign. So then I've been doing all of my due diligence and learning about TikTok and the foundations of the algorithm and what campaigns are successful, why and how. So I think it's important it goes back to what we were talking about before. It's important to just continuously evolve. And if you're an educator or a creative or someone that's inspiring other people, it's your job to continue to do that. The information that you're passing on and the relevancy of that information is really valuable and also important, and it keeps you fresh. So
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. And also continuing to grow in areas that, not only the areas in which you are teaching and the areas in which you're strong, but also the areas in which you're weak. And maybe that seems obvious, but I don't know. As a classical singer and somebody who grew up with classical technique, I've found myself coaching a lot of musical theater, and I've found myself to be very passionate about it. But sometimes I'm like, what gives me the right? I'm not a belter. I mean, I don't study this. I'm very good at helping other people with it, but I don't study this. And so actually, just the last few months, I started taking some voice lessons with some more contemporary teachers.
cool.
And
Great.
it's been so awesome. And
Yeah.
I'm not that great at it, like myself. But I'm growing and I'm getting better. And how much of a hypocrite would I be if I make my students study all this classical music and
Yep.
all of this legit music, not because I want them to be a classical singer, but because I know that it will help their technique. So I will take videos of myself and my voice lesson belting my face off and send it to my students and be like, see, I'm learning too.
Good for you. Hey, and who do you believe, right? You believe the person that's in the trenches with you.
Yeah.
It's like you're going to look to the leader that's doing, walking the walk and doing the thing, right? Friday mornings, I'm really lucky. I actually work with Judy Rodman, and we pass on a lot of information to one another, and we also actually do a voice lesson exchange. So I teach her a classical voice lesson and I pass on my technique, and she gives me a commercial lesson and she passes on her technique. So I've been doing that now. I don't know, 2 years, maybe 2.5 years or something like that.
Awesome.
So every Friday, I think we've only missed maybe at most half a dozen Fridays, but that's huge for me. Now she's taught people like Casey Musgraves and Matt Kearney,
Yeah.
so she knows what she's talking about, and she's had successful artists. Her herself, she's a songwriter. She has a sync deal on Amazon Originals right now. I can't remember what the movie is or the show series. She has her own book. She has her own programs. She was the #1 artist in the ACM's top new female artist or something.
She's a big freaking deal, is what
She
you're
was
saying.
she's incredible. She's incredible. And so every time I walk in to that session on Friday morning, I'm like, okay, I'm an open book. I take notes and everything. And I think that's important, man. I hope to continue this until the day that I die, because the minute I become complacent, then I'm done.
Yeah.
But
totally. Always keep learning. Well, on that note, is there anything you want to wrap up with, Mark? And I want you to plug all of your stuff, plug your site, plug your Instagram,
Yeah, sure.
everything.
I really appreciate it, Rachel. Well, first, I just want to thank you and everybody else that's listening to your podcast, because this is such a wonderful opportunity. And as artists, to be able to share this platform is just really wonderful. So thank you for this. I hope we continue to provide value and have more conversations like this in the future. I think that's going to be really fun.
Absolutely. No, thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, no, thanks so much. You can find me at my website, which markthress.com, MarkThress.com. I have my music on there. I have like various different media forms, and then I have room for like bookings and coachings and that kind of stuff if you're interested in that. I have social media, which is just at Mark Thress on Instagram, and then you can also follow Vocal 360 Global, which is at Vocal 360 Global. Yeah, I'm really excited about some of the upcoming projects we have. The Cloud Rounds is going to be really fun. So if you're interested in that, that's going to be, like I said, I think it's around July 15th ish. So that's going to be great. And that's going to be hosted by myself and 2 fabulous artists, Bella Ray and Tess Claire. So yeah, I think that's it for now. I feel like
awesome.
I probably missed something, but that's all good. That's all
well,
good.
If you did, we'll get it in the show notes. We'll absolutely get people in touch with you. And you're pretty fast at DMs on Instagram. So I imagine if somebody reached out to you and needed to get back, that you'd get back to them.
Yeah, I guess I'm on my phone too much.
Oh my God. Me too. I try to be instant. Then I realize like that's not realistic. Also, if people think I'm too instant, then they'll expect a lot from me. So.
Yes, exactly. You can't do that. You can't do that.
Exactly. Well, Mark, thank you. This has been so amazing. And
thank you so much, Rachel.
For all of you listening live, we're gonna sign off, and Mark, stay back here, but behind the scenes with me. But I'm just gonna end this live broadcast. Thanks,
fantastic.
guys.
Thank you. Take care. Have a good night.
Thanks for listening. End broadcast.